Hey guys, Rick Stone here from Our Stoney Acres. Welcome to our YouTube channel. So this video is a video that has kind of been all summer in the making because we've kind of had one of those crazy summers. And we've been busy doing some remodeling on a family member's house. And so kind of all of the extra stuff related to my garden has kind of gone by the wayside. And we finally finished up with that big project. And one of the things that I didn't get done this summer was a compost pile. Usually right here on this corner, little odd corner of my garden, I usually will have just a pile that I build and have cooking kind of all summer long. And this year I kind of neglected it and didn't get a compost pile in. And so I got a message from Smart Pots, and they asked me if I would be interested in doing a video on their compost bag. So let me show you this. It's called the Compost Sak. Big old guy. And so I said yeah, because I needed to get some compost going. And so we're going to do a video today on how to create a compost pile using leaves, garden waste, stuff like that, and grass clippings. Okay, and so we're going to use the compost sack to build us a nice pile, and I'll show you how the compost sack works and talk a little bit about what we're going to do to actually make a successful compost pile. Okay, so that's what we're going to be covering today. Before we get started though, please make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click that notification bell so that you get noticed every time I release new videos, which is about once a week. And then if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and then make sure that you go over and follow us on Instagram as well, because we're doing a lot of fun stuff over there. I try to get out in the garden almost every day, and so I would love to have you guys come follow us on Instagram. And there's a link down in the description that you can follow there to go over and hook up with us on Instagram, okay? All right, and then also thank you to Smart Pots and their compost sack for sponsoring this video. I appreciate them giving me a chance and kind of the kick in the pants that I needed to get my compost pile going this year. So the plan is to make this kind of a two-part video. Today we are going to build the actual pile, and then we'll do a follow-up video here in about 4 to 6 weeks where I talk more about care. We'll talk about turning and things like that, and you can actually see how the compost sack did this fall in creating a nice hopefully big pile of compost for us. Okay, all right, so before we actually get into building the pile, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the keys to having a successful compost pile. Okay, and I've got 5 ideas or concepts that you guys need to follow that will help you to have a real successful pile in your garden every year. And whether it's in a compost sack or a bin or just a pile like what I usually do, all of these principles are going to make you more successful in actually finishing up and getting some good, solid, healthy, yummy compost for your garden. Okay, so first off, let's talk about air circulation, and that's why I think the compost sack is going to be a great addition to my garden, because it's fabric. It's made out of the same type of fabric that they use for their fabric bags, and that is going to allow for a lot of air circulation. You want to be able to get air in. You don't want the process, a successful process for composting is aerobic, okay, which means there's air involved. If we get turning our pile into an anaerobic pile, there's not enough air circulation happening, then that's when it turns into a stinky, smelly mess. The bacteria kind of switch gears, and we get different bacteria then, and it really can turn out to be kind of a smelly mess. So air circulation is super important. So whether you're doing it in something like a compost sack or a pile or a bin, make sure that you have plenty of air circulation to keep your pile successful. Next on the list is making sure that you have the correct ratio of browns to green. And this one, there's a lot of debate in the composting world, okay? Some people say a 1-to-2 ratio. Some people will say all the way to like 1-to-4 or 1-to-5. So it's all really kind of up there. But the idea or the concept is that you need to have more browns than you have greens. So more carbon source than you have green or nitrogen sources, okay? So I think a good mix is about 3-to-1. So 3 parts browns to 1 part greens, okay? And I think that's a pretty good balance. Seems to work well for me when I get that balance worked out. Now, if you're off, you'll know it. So if you don't have enough greens, your pile will be too hard to keep moist, okay? So it'll be dry all the time, and so you need to add more greens. If your pile is too moist and it's getting boggy and gross and slimy, then you don't have enough browns and you need to add more browns. So it's pretty easy to figure it out. But again, I think that 1-to-3 ratio, somewhere right in there, is pretty good. And it's going to depend a lot on what's happening in your garden, the time of year, and things like that. And so kind of just play with it, but make sure that you remember that you need more browns than greens, okay? And usually in about a 1-to-3 ratio, okay? So that's important. Next is moisture. So we don't want our pile to be soaking wet, but it does need to remain moist. And so as you build your pile, you need to be adding moisture to it. And then as you're actually cooking your compost, you need to make sure that you continue to add moisture and water your pile often. You want your pile to be kind of the moisture of a wrung out sponge, if that makes sense. So not soaking wet, but still wet to the touch. And so you kind of have to just play with that and monitor it, but you do need to make sure that you keep your pile moist because it needs that moisture to actually get the cooking process going. So moisture is super important. Next is the size of your materials. So this is super important. The browns especially is what we're talking about. The size is less important with the greens, although I still don't want you putting lots of chunky food scraps and things like that. I want you to break things up even with the greens, but the browns especially take a long time to break down if they're big, okay? So if you're going to choose to use something like corn stalks, if you were to put corn stalks in a compost pile and not do anything to break them up, it's going to take a long time because there's just not enough surface area and it's going to take forever. And so the size of the materials that you're putting in your compost pile is very important, and the smaller the better. I think that a lawnmower is a great way to break up your material. It doesn't work as well with the greens depending on what you're using. If you're using like garden cuttings and things like that, and you chop those greens up with the lawnmower, that's great. You're not going to be wanting to run over kitchen scraps with your lawnmower really, but a lawnmower is a great way to kind of grind up and get both your greens and your browns mixed up. But I think it's super important that you get especially those browns to a small size. The more you grind them up, the better off you're going to be. Even things like leaves, I'm actually going to run over with a lawnmower to break them up and chew them up. That will help the composting process to happen quicker, okay? So particle size is very important. And then the last thing that is important about your compost is the actual size of the pile, okay? The bigger the better within some reason. And that's why I think the compost sack is perfect, because the really good dimension for a home compost pile is about 3 feet by 3 feet, and that's almost exactly the dimensions of this compost sack. So it's 30 inches wide by 38 inches high. So it's going to work out perfect for a pile, and that's kind of what you're targeting. So if you're putting together a pile, whether it's in the ground, in a bin, whatever it is, 3 by 3 is kind of the key to really get things started. Anything smaller than that, and you're going to have a hard time getting the heat to generate and to have enough material to really get that heat generating in the composting process happening. Now, if you've got a smaller pile, you can just let it sit longer, but if you hit that 3 foot by 3 foot measurement, then you're actually going to really end up having the action of the heat and the bacteria in your pile happen faster, and you'll get a quicker, faster result from your compost pile. Okay, so we're going to use the Compost Sak by Smart Pots to build our pile. First off, this guy's pretty tall, so it's almost 40 inches tall. So to get us started, to make things a little bit easier, is what we're going to do is we're going to fold this over. So we're just going to kind of fold it down like this. That will keep it open for us. So see how that'll open it up. So if you just fold that guy up, then we'll be able to just kind of start. And then what we're going to do is we are going to layer this in. And so we're going to start with browns. We're going to put some browns in. Then we are next going to add some of our grass clippings. And remember, our browns were nice and chopped up. I spent some time with the lawnmower chopping these guys up so that they were nice and small. And we're going to add those down in there. And we want about 2 to 3 times as much browns as we have greens. And so we'll put in a layer there. And then the other thing that we are going to do is we want to add a little bit of actually finished compost. And the reason why we're going to do this isn't 100% necessary, but the reason why we add a little finished compost is it kind of kickstarts the pile. Okay, so if you add just maybe a shovel full of compost to each layer, that is going to add in some good bacteria and things like that from that finished compost that is going to kind of kickstart us. And then each layer we are actually going to water in, and so we want to make sure that we water that in nice. And again, we're going for that wrung out sponge consistency, and so we don't want it to be too wet, but it definitely has to be wet in order for us to get that taken care of. So I'm going to go ahead and fill the sack up, and then we will come back and kind of finish things off. All right, guys, so number one thing that I will say about the compost sack is it's big. I honestly did not expect it to fit all the material that I had. I ended up having to go mow my lawns again just to get us to where we are here. So a lot of capacity in this. You can see there's still some room to go. So I may actually, we've got a lot of canning and stuff to be doing over the next week or so. So I may, before I really get serious about this bag, I may actually add a little bit more material to it still, because wow, it took a lot of material to get this guy full. So plan on that. But this is already a nice big tall pile. Good mix of greens and browns. I'm pretty happy with the mixture that I got in there. So let's talk really quick about temperature. Now, you can get really high tech. So I bought this, and I'll do a little close up so that you can see. This is a compost thermometer, and what you're going to do is you're just going to insert this down into the center of the pile, and it's going to give you the temperature. And the temperature that we're really looking for is somewhere between about 130 and 160 degrees. Okay, anything over 160, too hot. Anything under 130 is going to be really slow. So we want to try and keep it over that 130 degree mark. So how do we do that? We're going to test it every couple of days. We're going to make sure that we keep the pile moist. We're going to moisten it with water every several days, and so make sure that you've got a water source fairly close. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to turn this pile, and so I'm going to do a follow-up video to this one, and I'll show turning the pile and kind of the care that we're going to do. Plan on that one being about a month or so out, maybe 6 weeks is probably what it's going to take for this batch to cook. So sometime in mid to late October, we'll do a follow-up video for you so that you can see how things actually went. But the idea is that we're going to continually turn this compost, and so we're just going to get in here with a pitchfork or something, and we're just going to turn this and stir it up, and we want to take the outside material and move it to the inside. That will keep the pile hot, and we want to try and maintain that 130 degrees for as long as we possibly can. That's going to cook things down and just make a nice, rich, yummy, crumbly compost, which is what we're looking for. Okay, so look for the follow-up video. We will we'll go through and kind of talk a little bit more about the care in that video and follow up there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Again, this is made strictly from dried out plant material from my garden, or leaves and grass clippings for the most part. There are a few kitchen scraps and things like that that have gone in here as well. Now, one other thing that we want to do to make sure that we keep this bag nice and moist is we're going to use this cover, and compost sacks come with this plastic cover that we are going to put over the top. Goes on really simple, fits right on, which is awesome. Okay, that is going to keep the moisture in and also the critters out, okay, which is what we want. So great little guy. We'll see how it goes. I think that it's going to make a really successful pile because, number one, it just took a lot of volume to fill it up, and so there's a lot of material here, and I think it's going to cook really well. So we'll do some follow-up videos. for you, and you guys can try these out yourself. Again, there's a link for the compost sack in the description down below, so make sure you check that out. Okay, that, my friends, is all I have for you for this week. Hopefully you enjoyed this and you learned a little bit from it, and we'll be back again with some follow-up videos. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click that notification bell so you get notice every time I release new videos. Make sure you go over and follow us on Instagram as well. We're getting a better following over there and would love to have you come and join us. And then make sure you check out the Gardening Academy for the month of September. In the Gardening Academy, we are going to be talking more about composting. And so if you're interested in joining us over there, there's a link down in the description below. That's our monthly subscription service. We have a mini course, a Q&A, all kinds of great stuff every month. And so you should go check that out as well. Okay, all right, that, my friends, is all I have for you for this week. Everybody have a fantastic week. Happy gardening.